I chose to read the book Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. It's a book that revolves around leadership, the skill set a leader should have, as well as the true meaning of what it means to be a leader. So, a little bit of background on the author, Simon Sinek. He uses situations that he encountered while in the military and in the combat in the book because he believes that those life and death situations that he faced um, can be translated into a corporate setting, even though in a corporate setting we will probably not face life or death scenarios. Um, but it doesn't mean that we can't apply those same principles. So, a little bit of background into the book. After reading the book, I learned that the expression leaders eat last, it basically means that leaders should always put the needs and wants of their team um, before theirs. The leader's needs and wants should always be last. Once everyone else is taken care of, then you can focus on yourself. And when a leader does put the needs and wants their um, of their team before theirs, that helps build a strong trust. Excuse me, and it you won't have as much internal conflict. Which internal conflict can be anything from not being trustworthy to stealing, not showing up for work, leaving early, whatever it may be. But if you have a strong internal team, that team can face whatever kind of external conflict they might face. Whether it be their competitor or their or an unhappy customer or whatever that may entail. Another thing that was highlighted in the book is that leaders, yes, they typically do have more benefits. But with having more benefits, you also have more responsibility. And the leader's biggest responsibility is protecting their team from any kind of attack, essentially. Whether it be a deadline or a last minute meeting, whatever. And so, with that being said, the book also said we need more leaders. And this book was written in 2014. So 6 years later, yeah, I still think it's true that this world does need more leaders. But the book also did say, do you have what it takes upon yourself to become a leader? Do you have the skills that it takes to be a leader? So another thing that the book kind of addresses is that in today's business world, people are being taught more to be managers instead of leaders. So, if you don't develop leadership, I mean, that you're not really thinking long-term goals. And when you don't think long-term goals, you're kind of just disregarding what the company could be, what the company could do. And with that, you're also disregarding the employees and, their goals in life. So one thing I also wanted to talk about is in chapter 1, it's called Protection from Above. And it discusses one night in Afghanistan where this captain, they called him Johnny Bravo, was his nickname. It tells the story of how he just stepped up to be a leader, and how he didn't do it for for a promotion, for a raise, for a TV show. He just did it because he knew that's what he had to do in order to protect his soldiers that were on the ground. So he was flying an A-10 jet, in some undesirable weather. He had men on the ground who needed his help, and he had to pull off something that even the most skilled A-10 pilot could do. He had to, fly up and down through the clouds. He had to, he had to get off shots. He had to help help his fellow jets get through it. But he was able to do that, and because of that, there were no American casualties that night. And he said that the greatest reward from that was being able to meet the people he protected that night. Which I think, in that situation, there's going to come times in a corporate setting where, for example, maybe there's this presentation that needs to be done, and the person who's supposed to present it, they're out sick. So someone's going to need to step up and do that presentation, or else the people that are there for the presentation, they're going to be unhappy, and a deal probably won't be made, or something of that nature. So that's kind of where that life and death scenario that I discussed a little bit earlier comes into play. Yeah, I mean, someone being sick and someone having to step up to do a presentation isn't necessarily the same thing as flying a jet through some thick clouds, but you can apply the same principle. You're going to have to step up and take charge. Another thing that this book really highlighted, which I think is important in being a leader, is that employees, they're people too. They talked about the situation about this company in South Carolina, and a new CEO took over, and he was talking to this employee who just got back from doing a little bit of work down at the Puerto Rico division of the company, and the guy told him, he said, John, I rather much work in the Puerto Rico branch than the one here in South Carolina. And the new CEO, John Chapman, he asked him, he said, and why is that? And he basically replied back to the new CEO and said, the Puerto Rico branch treats me like a person. I can, I don't have to wait for a bell to go get coffee, which I have to do here in South Carolina. If I needed to go get my kid, I could just do that. But here in South Carolina, I got to jump through hoops. So thankfully, the new CEO listened. He let the people speak. He listened, and he took action. And because of that, letting people get a drink, when they need it, or letting people go pick up their kids from school, or take a sick day, that those people gave it everything they got. And the South Carolina company was doing far better than it was with the previous CEO, because with the previous CEO, people weren't happy. So the company was going down, and the new CEO was able to, bring it together. And, he developed trust with those people. And I think that's honestly the biggest thing that comes with being a leader. And what the book says about becoming a leader is trusting with each other, being strong, putting each other before yourself. That's what being a leader is. You are going to take care of yourself last. So, for example, if someone, needs to leave for whatever reason, the boss, that's a need of the employee. The boss is going to have to put that first, and the boss, maybe the boss won't get to leave at 5 o'clock because of that. But that's essentially what being a leader is. And another thing that the book highlighted, sorry for the pause there, another thing that the book highlighted is that leaders can't be responsible for numbers, but they can be responsible for people. And in being responsible for people, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. You can't be responsible for numbers. Numbers are going to be what numbers are at the end of the day, whether they're good or they're bad. But what leaders can do is they can take responsibility. which is a key thing about being a leader. And they can take responsibility for those numbers, and they can take responsibility for the people who produce those numbers. So, for example, if quantity is short on something that a company produces, then the leader is going to take responsibility for that, and you know, take that group aside, and talk it out, figure out what the problem was, what they can do. So, biggest things that came from this book, just to highlight things off here at the end: putting others before yourself, building trust, and just remembering that people are people, and that's truly what it just takes to be a leader. So if you can put others before yourself, you can trust in other people, and remember that people are people, then you have what it takes to be a leader in this world. So